Let's change the way you communicate. And the way that I want to help you communicate more effectively and more accurately is by teaching you some advanced phrases. These phrases are more specific. It's not like you're going to use them all the time, but it's going to help you do two things. I mentioned it's going to help you be more specific, descriptive, but also help you improve your listening comprehension because you will come across them. And if you are someone who enjoys building your vocabulary, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and then that way I can become your teacher. In case we have not met yet, my name is Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about helping you reach your fluency goals. So this is a quiz lesson. I want you to participate and write your answers in the chat, and let's go ahead and get the show on the road. This is our first question, and I've highlighted the phrase, and in this case, I'm omitting one or more words. So we are on the of a technological revolution. Which phrase are you going to use in this context? Specifically in this context. We are on the of a technological revolution. This is a phrase that I'm sure many of you have heard before. Whether you knew the meaning or not, I don't know. But once again, it's not one that you're going to walk out the door and hear somebody using this phrase. We are on the of a technological revolution. So with some of these, I will say, I haven't seen the word that we're looking for yet. I will say with some of these phrases, there may be more than one word that can be used. So for example, I see people like, we are on the verge of a technological revolution. That would work. We are on the brink of a technological revolution. I would say verge and brink would work. Edge, not so much, but the word that I was thinking of, maybe this is new, I don't know. We are on the cusp of a technological revolution. You are on the cusp of something. So if you're going to use this phrase, on the cusp, it means, we just talked about that word, verge. You are on the verge of some beginning point or the start of some major development. You are on the cusp. So keep in mind, if you say we're on the verge, that would work as well. We are on the brink. These are all synonyms, but specifically, and this will give you a better idea, cusp. You can be on the cusp of something. Appreciate the cusp, not the something. Appreciate this moment now. So the meaning of the word cusp, it really refers to this point in between two different things, a point of transition. That is the meaning of cusp, but you're really going to use it with this phrase and say on the cusp of something. We're talking about a major development that's going to change people's lives. So I want to emphasize the fact that you're not going to use this every day. Typically, you might hear this more in maybe a speech, and somebody says, we're on the cusp of some major change. Technological revolution, maybe you hear somebody use this when talking about AI. To give you a little more context, my family, we're getting ready to make a move. And that is a major development for our family, but I would not use this phrase. I would not say we are on the cusp of moving to a new city. That's going to sound a little weird. So you would really use this to emphasize some major development that's really going to influence everybody around the world. You are on the cusp of something. If this phrase is new, then let me know. You can hit that like button, hit those hearts. It just tells me that, okay, you are building your vocabulary. What about this one? I think this one maybe it's a little easier. We'll see. I always say that, and then it's difficult, and then when I think it's difficult, everybody gets it. So I'm giving you the counter argument. I don't really believe it. I'm just playing. So if we're having a conversation, think about like somebody's actually saying this, and you and I don't want to give it away. We're having this conversation, and I say, look, I'm just giving you the counter argument. I don't really believe it. I'm just playing what? Which phrase are you going to use? In this case, you could say this is more of an idiom. Someone said you're just playing around. Yeah, you could say that. Like, hey, I'm just playing around. I'm just messing with you. That would work. But there is a specific phrase that would really fit in this case. And I see one of the answers in here. So the idiom or the phrase that we're talking about, especially when arguing with someone else, devil's advocate. So if you're playing devil's advocate, then this just means that you are arguing a position or viewpoint that you may not personally believe in. Maybe you just want to debate someone else, or you want to see how much they know about the issue or the topic, and you're just playing devil's advocate. People may also use this to argue against an idea that is popular among many people. So I'm sure that I want you to think of someone right now that you know personally that likes to debate. They like to argue with other people, even if they don't really believe what they're saying. In that case, you could say they're playing devil's advocate. And really, you would use this in the context of a debate or an argument, and you're giving your position and they're giving their position, and maybe they're just playing devil's advocate. All right, so there's a great phrase to know. Good job, Takaya. Well played. Well played. So I thought this was a funny little meme, because I think you need to be careful when you are debating someone, whether or not you're playing devil's advocate or if you're just coming off and being mean and rude. So just something to keep in mind. In this comic I thought was funny, where they say, hi, I'm just playing devil's advocate. And you see the devil there. He's like, no, he's just being a douchebag. So if somebody's playing devil's advocate, maybe, again, they're really maybe bringing up some good points. But you got to be careful whether or not you're not offending someone, you're not talking to them in a condescending way. When you're playing devil's advocate, you're really just arguing the other position, the other point, not necessarily in a rude way or a combative way. So let's look at the next one. Again, if any of these phrases are new, let me know. You hit the like button, the heart, those hearts. That tells me that I should continue doing some more advanced vocabulary lessons, because I told you these are advanced phrases. His comments were beyond. It was totally unacceptable. So we're talking about somebody saying something. They make a comment that was unacceptable, and really, when you use this phrase, you're really emphasizing this fact. His comments were beyond what? So that is part of the phrase, beyond something. And then you could follow it up and say, look, this was totally unacceptable. He should have never made those comments. That it was just absurd, ridiculous. It was beyond what? And every time I say beyond, I feel like I'm actually going to give away the answer or say it. But I can go ahead and tell you, we're talking about the phrase beyond the pale. So if you say that something was beyond the pale, it was outside the bounds of acceptable behavior. Well done, Angela, Joanna, KB, beyond the pale. A lot of times people will use this when referring to somebody's comments, something that they say to someone, or the way they're treating someone. And if you think that they're treating somebody really badly, it's unacceptable, it's beyond the pale. Or they say something to a person, like in this case, you make a comment and it's unacceptable, it's beyond the pale. So just keep in mind, this is a great phrase to add emphasis. If you say that something is very unacceptable, that's when you can use this phrase and say it's beyond the pale. What about this one? This is another phrase that you could put in more than one word works here. So if somebody's in this situation, being passed over for, that should be the promotion. I apologize, that's a typo. Being passed over for the promotion was a swallow. There are a few words missing here, but there are several words that you could use that really mean the same thing. And once again, I will just want to acknowledge the typo there, the missing article. Being passed over for the promotion was a swallow. I feel like the fact that I'm giving you the word swallow, maybe it makes it a little easier because that is very specific. So in this case, we're talking about something happens and it's really tough to accept. So the phrase that I feel like is often used, and I saw many of you got the right answer, perfect. We're talking about a bitter pill to swallow, a difficult or unpleasant fact that you need to accept and just deal with it. And it's difficult, and you can describe that difficulty and say it's a bitter pill to swallow. Now, the word in here that I think you could change out, instead of saying a bitter pill to swallow, you could say something it's a tough pill to swallow, or a hard pill to swallow, or a bitter pill to swallow. So all of those phrases are really interchangeable. I think this one is the more common one when you're thinking about this expression, a bitter pill to swallow. To give you an example, again, in this case, they're using hard. It says hard to swallow pills. Just following up a little joke using this phrase. It says, just because you spent a long time making a mistake, being with the wrong partner, hanging out with toxic friends, working at the wrong job, taking the wrong courses in college, etc., doesn't mean you should keep doing it. So again, just thinking about something is a bitter pill to swallow, it's hard to accept, but you got to accept it and move on. And that's kind of what this is trying to say. All of these bad things, don't keep doing it, accept it. It's a tough pill to swallow, and then move forward. Wow, Cinderella, thank you very much. I appreciate that super chat. Love it. Glad you enjoy these lessons and find them useful, especially when it comes to building your vocabulary, because I do a lot of these quiz lessons and a lot of them are vocabulary related because I think it's more interactive that way. So really appreciate that, Cinderella. Much love, much love. The ruling was a moment for civil rights. There are several adjectives that you could use. We're talking about the civil rights movement. So, of course, you could say, and maybe I'm going to go ahead and take some of your responses, it was a crucial moment, or this was a pivotal moment. The ruling was an inspirational moment. These are not the words that I'm looking for. This is a very specific word which is used with moment. It is a collocation. This is more difficult. This is more advanced. And I wanted to share this with you, even though there are other words that you could put in there that make sense and it works fine, whether it's just reading what you all said, like pivotal, vital, essential, crucial. I saw the correct answer. Excellent. So the phrase that I wanted to point out, well done, Joanna, talking about a watershed moment. And if this phrase is new, again, it means the same thing as all of those, like crucial, pivotal. And if you describe something as being a watershed moment, it refers to a critical turning point. So I don't want to necessarily say this is going to add emphasis if you use a word like pivotal or vital. That is also very expressive. It's very descriptive. But I wanted to share this with you in case it's new, because I thought this may be a phrase that you haven't come across, or maybe you might not come across it as often. But if you describe something as a watershed moment, it is a critical turning point. I will say that when you do hear this phrase, or even maybe use it, you may be talking about some type of judicial ruling. So the court rules, maybe the Supreme Court rules in some way. It's really going to be a turning point, and you could refer to it as a watershed moment. And that is what this is talking about here with this example in the civil rights movement. The ruling was a watershed moment. I'm trying to think whether this is easy or difficult. Let's just give it a try. The professor's follow-up lecture continued same. There are some missing words around the phrase. The word same is going to be in the middle. So the professor's follow-up lecture continued, same, focusing on ethical dilemmas in modern medicine. Now, I feel like as far as the meaning in this phrase, maybe I'm not giving you too much context with this example, but what I really want to say, or keep in mind, we're talking about a follow-up lecture. So this professor has already talked about ethical dilemmas, modern medicine, but then they do a follow-up lecture. It really continues, and that's kind of leading into this phrase in trying to say, what it is. So I like the same old song. Like same old song, I feel like has a little bit more of a negative connotation, like, you're bored. It's the same old thing. That's not the phrase we're talking about. In this case, what I want to say is it's very similar. So it's not the exact, if you say the same old song, it is more exact. When saying something similar, and this is another phrase, I think you probably have heard of it, in the same vein. And if you say something occurs or happens in the same vein, you basically mean that something is happening in a similar style or theme. So in this case, there was one lesson talking about ethical dilemmas, modern medicine. The follow-up lesson was very similar. It's really, we're talking about those same topics, so it continued in the same vein. So great phrase, especially if this is one that you haven't heard of before. I see these like little numbers. I don't know what this is familiar with, the number 3, the number 2, number 1 with that crown. I'm going to have to look into that. So I'm switching it up now a little bit. In this case, I am blanking out the phrase. I'm giving you the meaning, but you can use the picture to try to help you. So the first one is talking about a decision or conclusion that has not been reached. Use the picture, think about the meaning, and what phrase am I referring to? A decision or conclusion that has not been reached, and in that case, you could say that the what? So obviously, you see this picture. I think you can tell that it's a courtroom. And there are different parts of a courtroom. What I was trying to find and track down is a picture of the jury box. The jury are your peers who would listen to the evidence, listen to the lawyers, make a decision. But when the jury has not made a decision and the conclusion hasn't been reached, you guys got it. You could say, I feel like I'm just rambling at this point. The jury is still out. So this is a great phrase that you can use when you want to say, well, we don't know. The decision has not been made, or we don't know what the conclusion is. Here are some examples using it in context just to give you a better idea. If somebody is asking questions and basically the response is, well, the jury is still out. Because often you may end up using this as a standalone statement, just to say, well, we don't know. Will Bitcoin ever reach $1 million? Well, the jury is still out. Some people think it will, others think it's worthless, but the jury is still out. We don't know. Will imposing tariffs make the U.S. a stronger economy? If you're following current events, especially politics, a lot of economic changes with all these tariffs. And if some people were trying to argue that, oh yeah, it's going to make the economy better and the U.S. stronger, is this going to happen? Well, the jury is still out. We don't know exactly the effects that this is going to have. And then the last one, are you going to hit the like button? This is something that I would ask you. Say, look, are you going to hit the like button? What do you think? It's right there. It's right in front of you. Go ahead and do it. And maybe you say, well, I don't know. I haven't made up my mind just yet. The jury is still out. So whenever you want to tell someone, they ask you a question and you want to just say, well, I haven't reached a conclusion, or we don't know, you could use this phrase. Say, well, the jury is still out. I hope that the jury is not still out and that you've gone ahead and hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. What do you think? This next phrase, the meaning is to create a situation that causes a lot of problems when it starts to be dealt with. And you can use the picture. It's not the most It's not the most pleasant picture to look at. It's kind of disgusting. But there is part of this picture is it's a key word as far as using or trying to figure out this phrase. The phrase that means to create a situation that causes a lot of problems when it starts to be dealt with. And if you're okay, I think you guys got it. So the picture you can see, I tried to blur it out a little bit to make it a little more challenging. That's a hook. Somebody put a worm on the end of the hook. They're getting ready to go fishing, and worm is the key word that's part of this phrase. So what we're talking about is opening a can of worms. The meaning of this phrase, just what I just said, you're talking about creating a situation that causes a lot of problems when it starts to be dealt with. Here is a fun comic just to give you some context with this phrase. These two birds, it says there's a can of worms, and these birds are saying, yeah, I'm hungry too, but are you sure you want to do this? Like, open this can of worms, open this problem. One thing I'll say about this phrase is people may use this because it creates problems. They may use it in the negative and say, look, I don't want to open this can of worms. I don't want to deal with this problem or this situation is going to create a problem. Let's not open this can of worms. And you may hear people use this phrase in the negative to say that you don't want to deal with it, and you don't, because you know it's going to create a lot of problems and it's not a good situation. Let's not open this can of worms. How about this one? The meaning is to make a bad situation worse. This is a phrase that, in my opinion, I think many of you know. You've heard this before. I think it's commonly used, especially nowadays with social media and basically people expressing every thought that comes across their mind. And it really makes a bad situation worse. And in that case, you could say that something does what? Once again, this picture, you see a picture of a fire, which is part of this phrase. So whenever you make a bad situation worse, you can say that you, or maybe somebody else is doing this, and they are adding fuel to the fire. And if you're adding fuel to the fire, it basically means what it says. You're going to make the fire bigger, possibly out of control. And in this case, we're talking about making a bad situation worse and adding fuel to the fire. Well done, Julia, Talal, excellent, Lali, to add fuel to the fire. Here are some news headlines now, just to give you more context. And I told you I think this one's common, even though this is a bit idiomatic. It is still used. You're going to read a newspaper article, you may come across it. So these headlines: don't add fuel to the fire. Europe tries to play it cool as storm Trump approaches. I think this was back before, like as soon as he got elected, and people in Europe are trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to deal with this? And saying, hey, don't add fuel to the fire. The next one, Nike. It may seem like it, but the drawdown isn't over. Tariffs add fuel to the fire. We just mentioned tariffs. What kind of effect are they going to have? The jury's still out. However, I think with some companies, depending on their business, like Nike, it's going to probably be worse, is what this article is saying. And it's going to add fuel to the fire. They were having problems already. This is going to make a bad situation worse. And then finally, Prince Harry's dinner with Brooklyn Beckham, not even sure who Brooklyn Beckham is, I don't know, maybe you guys do, will add fuel to the fire of family feud. So Prince Harry has dinner with this person, and it's going to add fuel to the fire when it comes to their family situation, which, if you're thinking about the royals, yes, it's not a good situation, and something happens, it makes it worse. It adds fuel to the fire. How about this one? Maybe, well, I don't want to give it away. So in this case, we're referring to something that has both positive and negative effects. You're talking about a situation, some issue has both positive and negative effects. And if you want to, instead of saying, well, this has some really positive effects and it could really help, but on the other hand, it's going to create some real problems and have some negative effects, you could refer to this situation as what? This is a noun phrase. You can look at the picture to give you a hint. Once again, I think just looking at the picture and you know what this item is, it's part of the phrase, which makes it a little bit easier. So you can see this picture of a sword. So if we're talking about some situation, positive, negative effects, you could refer to it as a double-edged sword. A double-edged sword, it is going to have, good things, bad things. So here are some examples to give you more context. Hopefully these sentences make it a little easier to understand. Fame is a double-edged sword because it brings attention, but also loss of privacy. So there's a good thing about it. You get a lot of attention, but then you have no privacy. It's a double-edged sword. Social media is a double-edged sword. It connects us instantly, but it can also fuel anxiety and misinformation. I think that's a great example. Social media, I try to think about whether or not the pros outweigh the cons. It's a great example of a double-edged sword, and part of me feels like it's more negative than positive, but I have not made up my final decisions. The jury's still out. And then the last sentence, automation is a double-edged sword. It boosts productivity, but can lead to massive job losses. This is also part of the conversation now with AI, automation, great example of a double-edged sword. And once again, we don't know what's going to happen. The jury is still out. One thing I want to say about this phrase is when I teach these noun phrases from time to time, keep in mind that it is a noun. And you would say something is a double-edged sword. Often I'll hear small speaking mistakes because people will try to use this as an adjective. And they'll say, oh, this is a double-edged sword situation. And in that case, as soon as I hear that, it sounds really awkward to my ears. So you're not going to use this as an adjective phrase. It is a noun phrase. And you'll always say that something is a double-edged sword. Keep in mind, it's a noun. How about this one? We're talking about postponing or even deprioritizing something. And in that case, what are you going to do? I've given you a real close-up of this picture. I really wanted to throw it at you. So hopefully you looking at the picture, you know what this is, and it's the word is part of the phrase. So if we are talking about something, you bring up an issue, doesn't really matter what it is. Maybe I don't want to deal with it right now. I say, look, I don't want to open that can of worms. Let's postpone it. This is not a priority. What are we going to do with this? So the picture is a stove. That is a burner. And that is the word that is part of the phrase. And I saw some great answers. Well done. We're talking about to put something on the back burner. So if I don't want to, maybe again, if it's opening up a can of worms, I don't want to do it. Let's postpone this. Let's put it on the back burner. Or we're talking about deprioritizing something. So in a sense, the way that you're going to use this is you're basically saying, I don't want to deal with something now. We're going to deal with it later because it's not important right now. It's not a priority. And you might say, okay, you bring up a good point, but let's put it on the back burner. We'll deal with that later. So think about cooking. When you're preparing food, the thing that you're focusing on now is in front of you. It's on one of the front burners because it should be closest to you. When you're cooking and something is ready, you're going to deal with it later, then you may move that food to the back burner because it's not a priority at that moment. You're cooking something else. So really, again, the phrase means what it says if you want to think of it in the context of cooking, which is where it comes from. And you put something on the back burner. You're not going to deal with it now. Okay, I forgot about this idiom. This cat just falling asleep on the stove here, kind of joking like it's a neglective kitten has been put on the back burner, and it's not a priority in this case. So how about this one? You say something exactly right. Look at the picture. I feel like I'm giving it away with the picture. This is if you watch a lot of movies, TV shows, I am confident that you've definitely heard this phrase. But if you want to say to another person, well, what you're saying is exactly right. You are absolutely right. You what? So in this picture, maybe I'm getting a little too close with these pictures, because that is a picture of a nail. And when talking about saying or doing something right, and we're talking about a nail, the phrase that you could use is to hit the nail on the head. Well done, Pitcher, KB, Lolly, Kevin, well done, well played. Here are some examples. And basically, when you would use this phrase, you're kind of confirming that what somebody has said is exactly right. Here's some sentences for context. Her analysis hit the nail on the head. Or during the debate, the candidate hit the nail on the head when discussing the root causes of inflation. And what you're saying is right, you hit the nail on the head. Or when she said the project failed due to poor communication, she really hit the nail on the head. So what she was saying was exact, it was correct, she hit the nail on the head. So this is a useful idiom. It is, again, it's idiomatic, a phrase that you can use when you want to say that something was exactly right. Another phrase I see people putting, like you mentioned, you nailed it. That would be another way of saying the same thing. I do think maybe that's a little more informal, but still, even this, because it's idiomatic, it's also quite informal. But to tell somebody, yes, what you said is right, you nailed it. That would be another way of saying it. Perfect. So here are a list. This is a little bit of review. Remember, you can get these lesson notes. Join our community. Actually, maybe I didn't even make that announcement. Maybe it slipped my mind. I can't believe I forgot. I apologize. That mistake is beyond the pale. So if you want to get these lesson notes, maybe I did mention this, I don't know. I haven't gotten much sleep lately. Click on the link down below in the description. You can join my community. If you're already a part of it, then check your inbox and I have sent them to you. So just as a little bit of a review right here, these are all of the phrases that we talked about today. Keep in mind, they are more advanced. So they're very useful if you want to be a little more precise, because you could use them in specific situations. If you want to say, well, this is hard to accept. It's a really, this lesson is coming to an end. I apologize. It's hard to accept. I know it's a tough pill to swallow. But I am going to continue doing more vocabulary lessons like this. They're similar. They're not going to be exactly the same, but they'll be in the same vein. And I'm just trying to use these as we go through this. And I hope that you continue to watch my video lessons and learn new things. This is something you should do continuously. Please do not put it on the back burner and postpone it for later, because building your vocabulary is incredibly important when it comes to reaching your fluency goals. And hopefully you think that I hit the nail on the head when I said that. And maybe if you disagree and you want to argue another point, perhaps you're just playing devil's advocate. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you again, Cinderella, for the super chat. Great to see so many familiar faces. Takayo, Julia, Angela, Kevin, Lolly. Thank you so much for being here, Manuel. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.